to be in time, we will follow up with the program. 2 talks are coming in this room. The next here is Christoph Galuschka talking about CentOS, QA, and OpenNebula. Thanks for coming, and it's your stage.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Just a few words about myself. I'm from Innsbruck, Austria. I work at the local utility company in the IT operations department. There I am mostly responsible for everything related to firewalling, network security, the company internet uplink, and of course those servers that are running on the Linux operating system, more specifically on CentOS. I am part of the CentOS quality assurance team since April 2 years ago, and in the project I am mostly responsible for doing release quality assurance, handling the T-functional stack around the automatic testing setup, and also I'm in the wiki and in the forums active. So I guess most of you are familiar with CentOS. Can I have a show of hands? Who knows it? Okay, that's basically most. So most of you also have also know that unexplainable time between an upstream release as a point release and we release the point release, in which we say, yeah, we are in QR cycle and it's done when it's done. So in June 3 years ago, we decided to try to automate this QA process, which was basically done by hand or partly automated, or one member did this stuff, one member did the other stuff, which had to be redone every time we did a rebuild of RPMs or of the tree or of the ISOs. So we decided to set up a repository to have a common set of tests usable for every release of CentOS, for every pointer release, to be repeatable and also to speed up things, because currently it is like this. We get a new tree build and the automatic QR already starts with all the tests that are in there. We are currently at around 430 scripts, which basically test high-level functions, trademarks, and does the stuff work as it should for more than 110 packages within CentOS. This starts with Anaconda and runs over lots of packages, FreeRadius, MySQL, HTTP, and ends with even zip package or something like that. Once this started, we later also added the Linux test project to include basic Linux functionalities. Does file grow work? Does syslog act as it should? Which is a little bit lower than the T-functional targeting. What we're planning also to do is test every update with all packages, test every update with all tests before we push it to a public release. So we are currently in the second setup of this continuous integration service. The first setup was before my time. So I can't tell you anything about it. We are currently in a data center. We are using, of course, OpenNebula as the cloud controller. We started this setup with 4.0, moved to 4.2 later. At that time, we used RPMs which were created by a CentOS developer, by Karan Singh himself. So we didn't use the stock RPMs at that time. We moved to 4.8 last month. Basically, I think 1 or 2 days before 4.10 was released. But we are still on 4.8. And we basically also had no issues updating from 4.2 to 4.8. The only thing was the Ruby gems, which, in my opinion, were present in the machine as an RPM install, but had to be reinstalled using the install gem script, which is provided by OpenNebula. So this is our setup. We currently have 3 dedicated rack servers we used for that, connected to a private and a public net. We have a little view on the Sunstone interface. It was not really busy at that time. We can see a Jenkins node running. That's the third of the VMs. We see someone running a CentOS 7 test instance for probably personal purposes. And we can see Jenkins running a complete test set on a CentOS 6 VM 32-bit, so one VM for one host. Yeah, as I already mentioned, we use OpenNebula as the cloud controller. The Sunstone interface is installed on the first of these 3 machines. But it's not available on the public side. We use SSH to tunnel to the Sunstone interface when we have to use it. The VMs themselves are also only available in the private network. So here's the same procedure necessary: tunnel through the first of these hypervisors. We use SSH as data store transport, and we use KVM for the hosts. In case you're interested, ci.dev.centos.org is the Jenkins node, which is also a VM in that setup, which is available on the public internet. If the Wi-Fi works, you can access that right now. What else? We have, the hypervisor. The first hypervisor has some additional functionality. It uses nginx to forward the public network to the VM running the Jenkins node. It allows the VMs to connect to the internet using IP tables and masquerading. It holds a complete mirror of all CentOS releases, so the VMs in question can get the packages locally. They don't have to query the net. And also using nginx and PHP, we also mimic the setup of a real CentOS mirror. So even packages like yum fastest mirror work in that setup. So we really have basically a complete setup, including mirror network. The Jenkins setup, which we use to handle all the testing. We currently have 4 groups of tests running in that setup. Hopefully from top to bottom, RIMEZOL, the Docker images testing, the functional testing, and the LTP testing. Most of that stuff is run on a daily basis, while the first 5, the RIMEZOL, are only called on demand. When we call them, more on that in a few minutes. What do we test? We basically test, in this setup we only test the current releases of CentOS, because older ones are, as you know, deprecated, so 5.11, 6.6 and 7.0. We run tests with our Docker images. The tests run on CentOS 6 and 7, and they test the Docker images from 5, 6 and 7. Basically it pulls in all 3 Docker images, tests the installation, tests I think if the release version is correct, and does some basic command execution inside. The functional stack is, which I already mentioned, is the automatic testing of functional packages, trademark checks, and stuff like that. We currently have 14 contributors. I will tell you a little more about how, if you would like, you can contribute to that as well. So if you stumbled upon any problem and you would like to have a test in CentOS, feel free to contribute. CentOS 7 is running there since the update to 4.8, so also since November, which doesn't mean we didn't use this whole setup to test CentOS 7 before we released it. We just didn't integrate it into the publicly accessible testing setup. LTP, the Linux test project, you can find more of that at ltp.sourceforge.net, which already mentioned does a little bit more comprehensive testing. This is also a setup where we sort of violate RPM install, because this is installed on every image and every instantiation from source code. So it's compiled and executed there, but at least you run through everything and you don't have pre-done RPMs, so you really see, okay, everything works as it should. The fourth and last is the RIMEZOL set of tests. RIMEZOL is basically a set of scripts that automate day-to-day CentOS operations. mostly it automatically pushes and pulls updates from ftp.redhat.org .com or does ISO builds or tree builds for us when we have a point release. So this is available to us on demand. Whenever we get new tests to check, we call this on demand and see, okay, our tests pass, we can merge, or okay, something fails, we have to do that again. Of course, we also need images to run these tests. CentOS 5 and 6 images I created by using Project Raindrops, which has been created by Karambil and Jamie. Thank you for that. It basically, this is publicly available, and it basically allows you to submit a kickstart file and a configuration file and get an image build tailored to your needs, basically on the fly. So 10 to 15 minutes later, you can pull the completed image down, install it where you want, and run it with the packages you selected. The CentOS 7 image that is used basically comes from the project itself, so from cloud.centos.org. It's available there for download, so you can use that as well. I've took a short Kickstart example. It's in the presentation then as well. As you can see, this is nothing fancy. This is actually the script that builds the image for the CentOS 6 x47 test image. It only has 2 repositories, the CentOS base release, no updates installed, and the one context. The image itself is also very small, only core, base, and the context packages themselves are installed, so nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. What we did with this image is the T-functional stack is one of the first steps it does is it calls an update of the virtual machine, which basically updates all packages, including kernel and JCC, which would usually require a reboot, but that again would fail Jenkins, or if the machine would terminate by rebooting it, Jenkins would say it failed. So we created this VM image to basically, on the first boot, start without SSHD enabled. Then it checks if it already has been updated. If not, it runs a complete update. After that, re-enables SSHD and reboots. So the first time Jenkins can connect to the VM is an up-to-date VM, including running not only updated, but also running the latest kernel. So we are sure this is what the machine should look like on that day with all updates available. So yeah, T-functional is basically a Git repository hosting all these functional tests. We are using Bash as main scripting language, but basically everything else is possible. It is hosted on gitorias.org and in the meantime also on git.centos.org. Yeah, I already said community driven, so everybody may contribute. You can see the daily results of all tests for I think about a year or more back on the ci-dev.centos.org webpage. And the repositories are also publicly available, the one at gitorias.org and the one at centos.org. The one at centos.org is basically part of the special interest group core, as it is has nothing to do with SCL or stuff like that, so it's part of the basic core distribution. What do we do? So, and what do we do actually in these 2 to 3 weeks, which we usually need, apart from rebuilding the packages that need to get pushed? So, we test is the next point release installable via various methods. We are doing it with ISO images through the network using various methods, NFS, HTTP, FTP, and PXI. We are doing mixed installs with net install ISOs and the newly rebuilt tree. We are trying USB images, AFI installs on VMware. Sorry. BIOS installs also on VMware images and on bare metal. This is, most of the stuff is highly automated, so once you get a new tree, this is basically rebuilt, installed, running through every iteration with 64-bit architecture, 32-bit architecture. So we really try to cover most of the stuff that we can test. Apart from that, we also do hands installation because naturally GNOME or KDE testing stuff is a little bit hard to automate. So this is basically all CLI based. Yeah, of course. So is the package doing what it's supposed to do? That's the major issue. And we also have had to expand tests or to adapt tests when new packages are introduced upstream. So as long as it's the first release of PHP, it's rather easy. Just like with 5.10, PHP 5. No, MySQL 5.5 got introduced. So you also have to adapt the packages or the tests to not only test the basic release or test the basic release in CentOS 6 or 7, but also if it is CentOS 5 to test the newer release, which is PHP 5.3 or MySQL 5.5. That also has to be considered. If someone says, okay, I want to contribute, here is how it works. Basically, you go to gitorious.org, clone your local copy, or better, your remote copy on the website, push it down, do whatever you want, add tests, fix tests, push your changes up, and then you request a merge. One of the developers will then take a look at it and either say, yeah, okay, we will test it, or say, no, okay, I already see there is something wrong, please redo it. He will then go to IRC, recall that rhymesol setup on demand. The advantage is while the Jenkins setup usually monitors only the main repository, rhymesol gets the new URL or the new Git repository from us. So whatever the name of the contributor, we will only give rhymesol this URL, so he checks his local copy. If all of the 5 tests work through, we usually say, okay, we merge the test, thank you very much. Yeah, if it fails, the contributor has to rework and see where it happens. The tests usually, the current setup takes 1 hour to complete all tests. Yeah, okay, for a single test in the last package, that's usually also, that's basically always a lot of time to wait. So we can also go ahead and change the repository to only test the package the user changed. So it does a set of basic tests, does DNS work, does YAM update work, and then it tests only his package, so the user gets feedback earlier than waiting for an hour until his package gets through to the queue. We then also push the new changes to the git.centos.org website, which is well, gitorious and centos.org are usually both in sync. The only difference is gitorious.org is the public part, while the whole QR environment, which runs at the point release, pulls its sets of packages from the git.centos.org. But usually that was what is on gitorious is also what is in the main repository. We have 2 further setups that use opennebula within the CentOS ecostructure. We have 2 data centers in London, which were housed, which have 2 setups. Each setup has 4 hosts, each setup has 4 hosts. One of these 2 setups will be expanded to 8 in the near future. We are already running some stuff there. The Planet website, testing VMs. We are currently working on an updated version of the bugs.centos.org website that is currently tested in that setup. We have reverse proxy running there and some internal stuff. And we are also in the preparation of moving the main website and the forum to this. It is also using 4.8 at the moment. It has update also has recently been done. This setup is using a cluster file system via InfiniBand. So if you are more interested in that setup and how the migration worked and what the issues were, very little if I remember, you can go to Fabian Arodin's blog, in which he covered basically everything that he had to do to get the new setup with InfiniBand to work. Wrong button. So this would be my part. Does anybody have any questions? Great. Success. Yeah, Jamie.
Something I never understood.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I have one question. It's something I never really understood. When you fix the tests, you're fixing. So you're pulling you're pulling from the Red Hat's FTP server. You download the source code, you compile it, and you test that you're compiling it correctly, right?
That's the intention we are planning to do. Basically, it's usually it's like this when the source RPM compiles or rebuilds successfully. The package is also considered sane. It is tested, does it update or install correctly, but we don't have the functional tests of the newly built package yet, because the build system is completely isolated. Once the package gets pushed to the Miro network, it is available publicly, so we haven't worked out how to manage pushing the package from the build system to a place where we can run all tests. Once that succeeds, we can push the package publicly. Did that answer your question?
Yes, but I still have.
Yeah.
I still don't get the whole picture. So you're fixing the building of the package. That's
no.
Or are you
we can't fix the building of the we can fix the building of the package in case a spec file or something is wrong. But of course, we can't fix the source as we pull it from upstream. What we had in the past is one or two updates caused a malfunction. I think a few months ago, LDAP had such an issue. If we had tested the update with this test suite, we would have found the error in the LDAP package, and then we could have said, okay, we will not release this update, although upstream released it, but we will hold it back because it breaks stuff. That is what we are working to do. But we cannot fix the source RPM. We can only file the bug entry upstream, or we can fix the spec file to match our environment. But we cannot fix the source code in the place where it is where the bug resides. We do such stuff only or in a very small amount. Recently with the OpenSSL bug, where we, I think somewhere in the middle of the night, pushed an OpenSSL package, which was basically the same as upstream, but with SSL version 3 disabled or with the buggy code. And a few hours later, upstream released also the new package. Did I answer your question now?
Yeah,
Okay. Now, of course.
More questions?
On the final notice, some of you already found them. There are free T-shirts over there, so sizes small through XL. So please feel free to pick one or two, or if some of your colleagues are in the other room, I guess they won't hear me, but tell them shirts are over there. Please feel free to grab one.
What's up with double X?
Yeah, I found some of them too in there. Yeah, double XL is there as well, but not as many.
It will not help me, but don't tell anyone. Okay, then. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well.